Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely. And parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/getstarted. That's GREENLIGHT.com/getstarted.
I'm just saying, if I'd written a book, I would at least mention you guys for sure.
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, man.
Sorry, maybe you could say sorry, or you could be like, hey, let's work on a book together next time. Like next time we're doing it, we'll do it with you because that would be awesome, right? This isn't hard. Cecil, there's a lot of things you could say that would make it nice.
What on earth could we write together?
You know what I'm fishing for?
No, I don't know. What, a bartending book?
Okay.
And furthermore, not knowing what you want when you get to the front of the line is an unholy abomination.
Got it. Okay.
Right.
Love it.
Monday. Forgot it was Monday. Record day.
Okay. I'll do it, I guess. Eli, why are you dressed like Elton John? Is that what?
Elton John. Yeah, that's what I couldn't place it.
Elton John wishes he looked this good.
Thank you, Cardinal Noah.
What?
You can commit one murder.
What's happening?
Nice.
No, I'm the Pope. After reading Tom's essay this week, I realized you don't need to know things or be Catholic to be the Pope. You just need to, take it with confidence, like all the pennies in that tray at the gas station.
Seriously? Guys, I expected this kind of thing from Eli, but Tom, Noah, I expected better from you. Well, maybe from me and Noah, but...
Okay, he promised to execute TikTok, and I need that.
And he has fucked or covered up the fucking of exactly 0 kids.
You know what? That's a fair point. I am in.
Yeah, that's solid. Me too.
Can I kill someone?
Depends. How do you like my outfit?
It's fine, I guess.
Fine? For fine, you could kill an Irish person.
Run away!
Nice. Hey, Heath, let's take a walk. Heath, let's take a walk.
I'm already gone.
Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, the podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts because this is the internet and that's how it works now. I'm Noah. I'm going to be presiding over this episode, but I can't handle all this papal bull on my own, so I brought along some friends. First up, 2 men who cannot be trusted with the pastoral staff anymore, Cecil and Heath.
Pastoral staff makes it sound way more impressive than it actually is.
Shaped like a shepherd's crook, at least.
The important thing is you don't get the pastoral staff infection. I think that's the important thing.
And also joining us tonight, 2 guys who went to a safety college of Cardinals, Tom and Eli.
All right. Look, any college I'm at immediately becomes your second choice. I get that.
And any classroom I'm in automatically becomes safe.
And before we get going, I think it's important to remind the listeners that we couldn't be here without their tithes.
Right.
Plus, we still do indulgences and everything.
We have an NFT of an indulgence, whatever the fuck you want.
So to learn more, be sure to stick around to the end of the show. And with that out of the way, tell us, Eli, what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event will we be talking about today?
We'll be talking about Popes Gone Wild.
Oh, Pope Boob. Okay, so Tom.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if read the article is probably not appropriate at this point, but you probably read something or something. Are you ready to tell us about it?
Indubitably, infallibly, yes.
It's all right. So why are we talking about popes?
Okay, so this episode is being released right before the start of Holy Week, which is the week after Palm Sunday. And it's pretty much the big theological tailgating party leading up to Easter. If you're a devout Christian, Easter is more important than Christmas, which seems insane since there are so many less presents and you don't even get a day off of work for it.
Well, most people do. It's a Sunday, Tom. It's
you already got that one. It's not special. Nonetheless, I thought it would be a good idea to explore a topic of terrific religious interest so we could all laugh and feel superior.
Right.
And there is nothing more superior if you are Catholic than the Pope. The Pope is supposed to be the direct religious descendant of the lead singer of the apostles. That's Apostle Peter, though not an actual descendant. The Pope is the descendant of Peter in the same way that I am a descendant of Christopher Hitchens, in that he is now dead, I am alive, and we generally agree on one topic.
On the one there.
Yeah.
And only one topic. Tom knows plenty of women who are funny and thinks the Iraq War was a bad idea. So don't at us.
Really, just the one topic.
But they
yes.
probably like a lot of the same scotch.
It's really
but
good
yeah.
that he died.
Now, anyway, the Pope is basically the leader of all the bishops, the head of the Catholic Church, and when he is acting in his role as Pope, cannot make mistakes and is thus infallible. I want you to remember this as we learn more.
Yeah, and before you send your emails, yes, we're aware that the doctrine of papal infallibility is more
Yes.
complicated than that, but like we're talking about the nuances of when some old guy is and isn't uttering the divine dictates of the ancient one. So it also isn't, right? At the same time.
A lot of nuance to that if you say it out loud.
Right.
Now, before we get to stories of actual popes, I want to tell you a story about the Pope that never was, Pope Joan. Since the Catholic Church is a centuries-old boys' club designed to, among many other things, enforce and enshrine male dominance into European culture, women are not allowed to hold religious office in the Catholic Church. They cannot be priests or bishops, and they sure as shit can't be the grand poobah, tall hat-wearing, supremely infallible leader of the whole lot of them. Basically, you can't swing dick in the Catholic Church unless you're swinging a dick in the Catholic Church. So the idea, the scandal, that a woman would somehow finagle her way up the chain of command to lead the church is both unthinkable and delightfully salacious. Also, it will turn out to be a monstrous story because, of course, it is.
Well, if there's a swinging dick in the Catholic Church, it's going to be a monstrous story. Yeah.
Sure is. Yep.
Doesn't go well.
So the legend began sometime in the 13th century and first appeared in a Dominican chronicle around 1250. The story goes that way back around 855 to 858 AD, between Popes Leo IV and Benedict III, well, hold on, because maybe the story actually took place around 1099 to 1100. Or it
Interesting.
could be that this happened from 1086 to 1108.
Right, yeah. Plus, they invented 297 years that never really happened. So it's really tricky.
Exactly,
What
yes.
Pope year it is.
All right, so it's confusing to pin this down exactly since it never happened. There were, it turns out, something called anti-popes during this time period, which is basically when someone who is not the Pope declares that they are in fact the Pope, and then some people follow that guy instead of the other one. And for a whole while, the system to pick the Pope was in some serious chaos. The whole thing's a mess, and it makes no sense.
Yeah, as opposed to the perfectly reasonable colored smoke-based system that we rely on now.
That's how they do it for real.
The anti-pope wears a really short black hat and he lets the kids touch him.
And he gives away bars of Nazi gold. It's confusing. He's a Nazi hunter, so it's like, where'd you get the gold? But that's good. I don't know what to think about you. Anti-Pope's good.
And if he touches the real Pope, then they cancel out and are destroyed.
There's a Pope
White hole.
explosion.
Yeah.
Pontiff explosion.
Didn't happen sometime between 855 AD and 1100 AD. And there are two stories here at the beginning, but they sort of
Explosion's
converge.
excellent. It took me a long time.
So this leaves us with a legendary lady pope, which didn't happen sometime between 855 AD and 1100 AD.
Well, it didn't happen
And-
all the other years, too. But yeah.
It's true. That's okay. Those are the specific years that
Those
didn't
years
somehow
weren't real,
just-
everybody. Check out the Phantom Time Hypothesis.
There are two
episode of
stories
this
here at the
show.
beginning, and they sort of converge. So Pope Joan was either an English woman called Joan who went to Athens with her lover and studied religious stuff, or Pope Joan was a German woman called Gilberta. In any case, Joan or Gilberta disguised herself as a monk for reasons unclear to anyone, and then called herself Joans Anglicus. She was evidently crushing it as a monk, and her Groucho Marx nose and glasses disguise was very convincing. She was able to rise through the ranks of the power structure of the incredibly cutthroat and politically dominant Catholic Church to become the Pope. Voila, Lady Pope Joan.
I don't know what it is, Brother Medici. Brother John, he just pulls off his sackcloth so much better than the rest of us.
But being Lady Pope isn't all fun and silly hats, because the story goes that Pope Joan found herself in the family way. And while processing about in an Easter procession, she fell off her horse and, wouldn't you know it, she just gave birth to a child right there in the street in front of everyone like you do.
Sure.
Yeah. And according to the legend, once the crowd saw her give birth, they astutely saw through her clever ruse and they stoned her to death in the street. And I cannot help but picture a woman laboring for hours, or at the very least several dozen minutes, just panting in the street while a bored crowd waits for her to be done, just like casually tossing a rock up and down in their palms while they do.
Okay. There's one guy who threw a rock way too soon and got yelled at. Everybody's like, come on, man, seriously? You're not going to. And he's like, really? We're doing an ethical stoning. Is that what we're saying? I was unethical in my stoning. That's what you guys are saying. Okay. I'm the asshole.
You know what they say about people that fall off a horse and give birth? They couldn't be saddled with a kid.
Jesus, that's the greatest joke.
I honestly just I don't see how a bunch of pedophiles don't see this as like a manna from heaven kind of moment, though, right?
So this absurd, absolutely never happened legend actually spawned another, even dumber legend. See, there exists two ancient stone chairs, and they have holes in the seats. And idiots who believe in this series of both unfortunate and impossible events believe that the purpose of these chairs was that so someone could feel up whoever was supposed to be declared the new pope to make sure they didn't end up with an innie when they were really looking to elect an outie.
Why would they have to be sitting?
And I love the idea. I have no idea. Just flash me. Just flash me your shit. I love the idea that some ancient guy's stone hemorrhoid lazy boy spawned this ridiculous corollary.
Okay. Texas just installed those in all the women's bathrooms, so I don't know what you're talking about, Tom.
You could just have the new pope piss out his gray smoke fire after he's elected. That really does sort of shift away from the pro-groping church, though, so I get it.
It's how we solve all our problems.
If you can't grope your way out of it.
Okay, first of all, those two chairs were obviously toilets, right? A chair with a hole in it is a fucking toilet. But why were there two?
His and hers.
What was there? Like,
okay, and then they sit down and like, gotcha.
No, honestly, though, even though the fictional Pope Joan was stoned to death by a crowd of zealots in front of her newborn baby as an object lesson in misogyny, it is actually a far more family-friendly story than the next batch of actually real popes. Take, for instance, Pope Alexander VI, born Rodrigo Borgia, who is widely cited as the most corrupt pope in history. Like most men in positions of terrific power, Pope Alexander didn't climb the ladder one bootstrap at a time. Instead, the path to infallibility was greased by Rodrigo's uncle, Alfonso Borgia, who would become Pope Calixtus III in 1455. Now, once he was in the big chair, Alfonso appointed many of his family to high-level positions within the Catholic Church, including naming Rodrigo Borgia a cardinal at the age of 25.
Okay, you know what? I'm starting to think the guy in the little White Riding Hood outfit in the secret golden city full of secret Bible books that you're not allowed to see except him and full of Nazi gold. I'm thinking maybe he's not the trustworthy, infallible conduit of the God of the universe like I was led to believe. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm a Catholic. I'm thinking that, and I'm going to stop going to church. What the fuck?
I feel like we're going to have to set you on fire, bro.
So at this time, it was commonplace for high-ranking church officials, such as cardinals and popes, to have mistresses. But Rodrigo, he took the shit up a notch in that not only did he not attempt to hide his dalliances, he dallied with women who were, in fact, already wives of noblemen. He had at least 7 children by 2 mistresses, though the total number of children he sired and didn't openly brag about is almost certainly much higher. And once Rodrigo was elevated from cardinal to pope and took up the moniker of Pope Alexander VI, Rodrigo's nepotism and sexual escapades only got, shall we say, more biblical.
Oh, he started cutting them into pieces and mailing them around town. 'Cause that's not cool. That's not cool.
His daughters drugged him, and it's a lot of ways that could go.
Yeah. So pretty much immediately, Pope Alexander VI began appointing just about everyone in his family to some level of authority within the church, including 10 of his family as cardinals, including his 18-year-old illegitimate son and the younger brother of one of his mistresses, who himself would later go on to become a pope. He then granted everyone he was connected to papal fiefdoms, essentially making these family members not just cardinals, but now landed lords. And he raised money just straight up selling off other church offices to the highest bidder.
It's funny, I was going to actually make a Trump comparison, but then this guy seemed to care about all of his kids, so it didn't work anymore.
Yeah.
Mix it all up.
And Pope Alexander VI, he wasn't just in it for the money. He was living the Pope life like he was on a frighteningly well-funded 15th century version of Jersey Shore. In 1500, he declared the entire year a year of celebration, the holy year of Jubilee, for no other reason than just he wanted a party.
Gap year for everybody.
That's awesome. And then the next year, at his papal residence in 1501, Pope Alexander threw a party called the Banquet of Chestnuts, which was less of a banquet and more of an orgy involving 50 prostitutes and his son among many of his other companions. Reportedly, the orgy involved some level of competition amongst the men. Here's a quote. After dinner, the candelabra with the burning candles were taken from the tables and placed on the floor, and chestnuts were strewn around.
Interesting.
Then the naked courtesans would pick up the chestnuts, creeping on hands and knees between the candelabras, while the Pope, Caesar, and his sister Lucretia looked on. Finally,
sister?
Prizes were announced for those who could perform the act most often with the courtesans.
I'm
yeah, man.
less interested now.
Nothing more sexy than a game of naked. I lost my contact on the rug.
Well, to be fair, though, it doesn't specify how they were picking up the chestnuts, though, Cecil. So.
You know what?
Okay.
You have a point.
That's a cool game now. Now that's a cool game.
It's like bobbing for apples with a whole different
Bobbing for apples and fuck Twister all at the same time. I like it.
Now, if you maybe thought that a papally arranged orgy with your own son and sister in attendance was perhaps something only Heath would be into, allow me to regale you with another contemporary account. We're just going to go right past you. With another contemporary account of the papal shenanigans of Pope Alexander VI. Here's a quote. There is no longer any crime or shameful act that does not take place in public, in Rome, and in the home of the pontiff. Who could fail to be horrified by the terrible, monstrous acts of lechery that are committed openly in his home with no respect to God or man? Rapes and acts of incest are countless, and great throngs of courtesans frequent St. Peter's Palace. Pimps, brothels, and whorehouses are to be found everywhere. End quote.
All right. So it looks like we're going to pause here on the Vatican's ethical high point. For a little, but now it's not openly, so it's much better. Okay.
No, Nazis didn't even exist yet. So
right?
they're winning.
Exactly. So
they do get worse from here. Yeah.
So we'll pause there for a little apropos of nothing.
All right. At long last, I am finally the Pope. Awesome.
Indeed, Your Holiness.
Nice. Yeah, which means, yeah, cool. So I can really, now that I'm Pope, let the sexual perversion off the chain. I'm going to go nuts with this.
We are yours to command.
Yeah, you are mine to command. So, okay, first, everybody get naked.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, right?
Right away.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
As you command, sir.
I can see your boobies and stuff. Nice.
Is this all, Your Holiness, or
What? No. We're doing a big debauchery thing that I've always dreamed of. It's gonna be super debauched. So yeah, okay. No, here it comes. I've got the rest of the idea. It's
Just say the word, Your
Stop interrupting.
Holiness.
I'm trying to think of my next thing. Okay. No, I had already thought of this. I just remembered what I thought of earlier. This is going to be awesome. I would like to put the candles to floor level, right?
You want us to put the candles on the floor level?
Floor level, yes.
Floor level.
That would be fire hazard, right? Right. And I wasn't done. Nobody reacted to the. Okay, well, we're gonna also throw some nuts. It's called right. This is called the chestnuts, so thematic. We're gonna throw the chestnuts on the floor. Also, floor level chestnuts. In addition to the candle, you guys heard the candles, right? So it's like a fire. It's like a fire hazard, and the nuts are on the floor, and then the nuts are there. People eat them. But okay, but like sexy eating, like goat.
Sorry, did you say goat?
Tiger, lion, like a sexy animal, whichever you would find.
Chestnut eating lion?
Do you find that sexy? Whoever just piped up? That guy? Do you find a sexy lion eating a chestnut? Is that? Also, okay.
No,
I feel like you guys aren't responding to my thing. So we're also, we fuck, of course, right? Like multiple times, all of us.
Your Holiness, is it possible that now the time has come, you don't actually have a plan for absolute sexual power?
No, I told you I'd already formulated this. So I want the candles and the nuts and the fucking, which I had said just before you made that comment. So all those things. It's going to be super debauched, like fucking debauched city. We're going to go nuts. It's an awesome idea. Nuts is a pun also on top of what I said.
I guess I'll get started on the nuts, I guess.
Thank you.
Just do that.
I'll take the candles down.
Super debauched. Fucking debauched city.
Nom, nom, nom,
Debauchistan.
nom, 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 nom.
All right, well, now that everybody's shit on the whole chestnut orgy thing, I need to rethink my proposals for our team building retreat. Hello. So while I do that, why don't you tell us about some more shitty popes, Tom?
I think I will. So, though Pope Alexander VI was the most corrupt, that might actually be only because his reign was more contemporary than Pope John XII. He was pope from 955 to 964 AD. The Catholic Encyclopedia calls him, quote, a coarse, immoral man whose life was such that the famous Lateran, which I looked up and is a Roman Catholic palace, was spoken of as a brothel, and the moral corruption in Rome became the subject of general odium, end quote. And again, this is a quote from the Catholic Encyclopedia. It's not generally known for being critical of that church.
Tom, I'm confused. Does the Catholic Encyclopedia think that guy was imbued with divine knowledge as well? Or did Jesus skip a guy?
Idea.
What's the Catholic Encyclopedia's story? I know my story.
So Pope John XII was accused of perjury, of selling off of church offices, lands, appointments, and privileges. He was, in fact, for a short time, briefly deposed as pope. And Pope John XII was down for a minute, but not at all out. Instead, after being deposed, he initiated a bloody purge of his enemies within the church and was reinstated after the bloody purge as the moral and spiritual leadership of the Catholic Church.
Jesus Christ.
Pope John XII was eventually rendered not the Pope anymore when he was killed in bed by an irate husband while the Pope was fucking that guy's wife.
One of his aides just standing there watching, waiting to light that white smoke or whatever. Dude, just stab him again. I got to do a thing. Take me 15.
I just love that a full 1,000 years ago, this guy proved you could kill your way to supreme moral authority in their system, and they capped it. Right?
So if, bloody purges are your thing, and how could they not be? Look no further than to Pope Urban VI. Remember earlier when I mentioned that for a while there were popes and anti-popes? Well, in 1378, there was a big break in the church, which really exacerbated the clash of popes problem. And Pope Urban VI, he just wasn't having any of it. This story is actually very fascinating in its own right. It deserves its own episode. But the short version of the story is that there was a significant faction of political, religious figures who opposed Urban as pope and sought to depose and arrest him. Urban discovered the plot against him, and he had the 6 cardinals who were plotting to overthrow Urban arrested.
Well, yeah, in his defense, we wouldn't discover polonium until 1898. So there's only so much you can do.
So to obtain confessions about the alleged coup, Urban had the cardinals brutally tortured, and he was not squeamish about this. In fact, he not only attended the torture of his would-be usurpers, but he complained to the torturer when he felt the condemned were not screaming loudly enough under duress. Urban suspected that the king and queen of Naples were in on the plot, and while he couldn't arrest and torture them, he did excommunicate them, which was its own scandal, and it caused the king to then lay siege to Nocera, where Urban lived. The Pope then responded by climbing to the ramparts several times a day and anathematizing his enemies below. Anathematizing is like being excommunicated, but on steroids.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you clarified, because I was pretty sure he was just yelling out their body parts from the ramparts. Head, arm, foot.
That could be intimidating. I wouldn't know what to do.
So if you're anathematized, not only are you kicked out of the church, but you are being formally separated from the body of Christ itself. And if
he was doing like magic.
Yeah, he did like double
he
magic,
was
just
crushing
yelling
their heads,
magic.
but magically, yeah. Papally. It was amazing.
That's awesome.
They are surrounding his shit with like swords and siege weapons, and he's yelling magic spells at them.
Yes.
But, you know, the thing is that if you're a believer, and pretty much that's everyone at this point in Italy, this is a proclamation from the head of the church that you are absolutely certainly going to hell, and there is nothing you can do about it. Well, okay, except try to kill the Pope, which was already their plan.
Yeah,
so.
right.
Hey, Your Holiness. You know, like, I get what you're doing here, but it's honestly, it's working as more of a psych up for everybody else than a discouragement. You're saying, like, if you don't kill me, you go to hell forever. You hear it? You hear what's going to happen next?
So ultimately, Pope Urban would escape the city, and the siege then just petered out for lack of a queen in the hive. Pope Urban would live out his career as Pope without showing much of a shred of decency or even accidental competence. And he is mostly remembered 1,000 years after his death for being just like a monumentally foul-tempered asshole.
It's good to know that can get you in the history books, at least.
After he fled the city, he had to change his name to Pope Rural.
He became something of a rural king. So then there was Pope Benedict IX, who was described in one text as, quote, a demon from hell in the disguise of a priest, end quote.
Wow, just stealing from Noah's diatribes now. That's cool. Whatever.
Pope Victor III wrote of Benedict that he led, quote, a life as Pope so vile, so foul, so execrable that I shudder to think of it, end quote. Again, an entire citation needed could easily be written about this guy, but I will give you the lowlights. First off, Benedict became Pope at the age of 12, when his father, an influential count, basically bought him the most powerful job on earth. But being Pope at 12 in 1032 isn't actually a great gig, since again, there were just anti-popes around every swing set trying to kill and depose you.
Yeah, making him the second most endangered child in the Catholic Church, right after all the other children in the Catholic Church.
Tied for second, yeah.
So Benedict bailed on the Pope job a few years after his appointment to avoid being murdered, which is kind of hard to argue with. And that actually happened twice, with Benedict being made Pope, then being forced to quit and hide to avoid being murdered. And his family militia eventually was strong enough that Benedict was like repoped in 1036, but then resigned again in 1044, but not before gaining notoriety for his lavish orgies at the palace, involving not just the usual chestnuts and prostitutes, but also men and animals as well.
Chestnut guy's like, fuck, okay, I knew I was leaving something out. I feel stupid. All right. I'm going to brainstorm with this Benedict guy from now on. Animals.
Then again in
lion? Sexy lion?
So then again in 1045.
Who's sexy lion guy? No, he said, okay.
So then again in 1045, he was Pope for 2 whole months, but Benedict's terrible behavior, even for a pope, made holding the position untenable.
I feel like you could see that coming at this point, right?
If he pulls out. So this time, rather than resign, Benedict realized he had something that was fucking gold and he wasn't giving it away for free.
Little Illinois joke there.
There we go.
Oh, well done. Well done.
Nailed it.
Blagojevich said that about the Senate seat that Obama gave up. That's awesome.
So Benedict sold the papacy itself. Not papal lands, but the actual papacy. He just sold that to Gregory VI. And Benedict was going to use the money to put together like a little nest egg for himself and finance his wedding. But the whole scheme fell apart when Benedict couldn't actually secure a bride that wanted to marry him. And so Henry III dismissed Gregory from being the Pope, which I don't really understand. But I guess there you have that.
This feels a lot like UFC 3 where the main card guy got hurt and a ninja showed up and won.
The history of UFC is great because it's like if the first 3 Super Bowls had been a pirate ship versus a bunch of samurais, and now nobody talks about it.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, that would be awesome.
Exactly.
And it was.
So somehow Benedict became Pope yet again in 1047, but he was only infallible. But he was only infallible this time a bit less than a year before Charles III convened a bunch of cardinals. They fired Benedict from being Pope, probably believing in the bizarre fact of his own history, Benedict never stopped trying to regain his job as Pope. And honestly, at this point, I'm kind of surprised he didn't get it back at least one more time for old time's sake.
He's just texting the Catholic Church on Thanksgiving break like a high school girlfriend. It's like, hey, I'm in town for a couple of days. I'd love to hang out. Winky face.
It's never a good sign when somebody who's infallible and the conduit of God has to have a meeting with HR. They're just like, what would this be about?
And we would be remiss if we didn't end this tale of bad popes without at least mentioning Pope Leo X.
Whoop, whoop.
Now, while the other popes, they fucked other people's wives.
Okay. You're a big Leo X fan. Got it.
Yeah.
Noted.
So while the other popes fucked other people's wives, animals, prostitutes, and dudes,
And chestnuts.
it can be well argued that no one fucked the church itself harder than Pope Leo X. As Pope from 1513 to 1521, Pope Leo spent so lavishly that he began to drain even the prodigious coffers of the Catholic Church. And it was actually Pope Leo who had the bright idea then to sell indulgences. Indulgences are sort of like a prepaid sin calling card. The idea of indulgences predates Pope Leo, but it was Pope Leo who monetized penitence and forgiveness, essentially making the committing of sins an easily forgiven matter of buying your way up to heaven. And it was this corrupt, morally bankrupt money grab that inspired Martin Luther, the father of the Protestant Revolution, to start a theological schism that ultimately radically weakened the Catholic Church, all because Pope Leo couldn't stick to his fucking budget.
Now that is worth a woo-woo. Yeah.
And Christians never used money to buy religious piety again.
Finally, I need to acknowledge this list. It is not at all exhaustive. There was also Pope Boniface VIII, who again could and should have his own episode. There were, of course, the Pope who aided and abetted the Nazis, and the popes, pretty much all of them actually, who enabled centuries of sexual abuse. So if you're like thinking out there, oh man, Tom skipped this pope or that pope, I'm sorry. The thing is that Holy Week is only so long, as is this show. And if we're going to have time to rub ashes on our heads like some weird dirt schmear before celebrating the brutal torture and blood sacrifice of an itinerant preacher so that he can forgive us for being human, well, I guess we have to stop somewhere, and it might as well be here. Also, all the popes were monsters.
Yeah, this kind of is a prerequisite. All right, so if you had to summarize what you've learned in one sentence, what would it be?
Infallible is actually pretty fucking fallible.
Way more than you'd think.
more than you think.
Yeah.
Very
I'm gonna
fallible. Like
add
more
something
than
to-
average fallible.
Stop being Catholic. I'm going to
That
add,
too.
is I've learned in one sentence.
All right, so are you ready for the quiz?
I don't think I can get any wrong.
Right. Tom,
Yes.
which of the following is the best porn video about the Pope who had a bunch of people military crawling on their bellies naked through a maze of candelabras while they collected chestnuts during a dinner party. A, candelabra the behind. B, milking the prostrate.
So good.
That's an ass thing. Or C, okay, I tried to look up actual Pope-themed porn. I really did just recently look this up. I couldn't find any because there's a mechanical rubber dick machine called The Pope. And if you search Pope porn, every video for like 200 pages is just porn star name versus the Pope. And that's all there is.
That's so much.
Also, D, I don't like
so
any
much.
of the videos that I try.
That is so
love-
amazing.
And I'm slightly disturbed by the versus portion of that.
It's like who versus? It's antagonistic.
It's very, yeah. So I'm going to go with C because that's almost certainly unsettlingly true.
Yeah, that's correct. This is absolutely correct. It is true. I did that, and all that's real.
Tom, if you were made Pope, what's the first thing you'd do? A, release millions of dollars in stolen property that the church confiscated during the Holocaust that they've admitted to.
I would do that, yeah.
B, disband the Brother Penance, a monastery in southern Italy where known convicted pedophiles live out the rest of their lives in luxury.
Fuck.
C, share the more than 64 lost books in the Bible that the Papal Library has confirmed they have copies of. Or D, chestnut orgy.
Wait a minute.
Man,
Can you
to choose
repeat the
from.
question? First thing I would do? First thing. All right, the chestnut orgy would have to wait. You got to gather the chestnuts and then move the candelabras.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, you don't want to rush into a chestnut orgy. It's A.
Incorrect. You would do chestnut orgy.
Yeah. Also, you do want to rush into a chestnut orgy. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Ass first. All right.
Fools don't rush into a chestnut orgy. I think
Well,
that's
you want to military crawl into it, but quickly.
Yeah, backwards. Tom, what's the easiest way to secure an indulgence? A, have the pontiff on a string or a pope on a rope. B, send him a secure payment through PayPal, C, be related to him. He's your Vatican. D, copious hand jobs or apostolic mission. Or E, make him a nice smelling smoothie, Pope Puree.
Oh, Potpourri. I feel like you wrote that whole joke just for Potpourri. That's good.
Hell
Potpourri.
of tags. There you go. Yeah, sure. Whatever you said.
All right. Well, it looks like Eli was the winner because Tom was lying about the chestnut orgies primacy in his list.
He said first thing.
obviously.
So, Eli, you
what
are
you
the
do
winner
first.
and will host next week's episode.
I want Cecil to write an essay.
Oh, sex abuse scandal of the Catholic Church coming up, guys.
All right. Well, for Cecil, Eli, Heath, and Tom, I'm Noah. Thank you for hanging out with us today. But we'll be back next week. And by then, Cecil will be an expert on something that's hopefully not that. Between now and then, you can hear more from Tom and Cecil because they wrote a fucking book. Check out The Grand Unified Theory of Bullshit wherever you get books. Or if it's not there, check somewhere else, right? And if you'd like to help keep this show going, you can make a per episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod or leave a 5-star review everywhere you can. If you want to get in touch with us, check out past episodes, connect with us on social media, or check the show notes. Be sure to check out citationpod.com.
Wow. All right. That was pretty fucking debaucherous, right? Right? With all the fucking we all did just now.
Yes.
So
What
good.
dark hedonism shall we do now, my lord?
Okay. Yeah, no, I have another part of the plan. Now, we are going to nap, but then order Chinese food. But okay, but then we'll fuck again after that. After we eat the food. If I'm not too full from the Chinese, we'll fuck again.
You're gonna be too full
Gotta
from
be
the
too
Chinese.
full.
I am
You are
absolutely
all
going
the
to be too
time.
full from the Chinese food. That's correct. We're done fucking.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely. And parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/get-started. That's GREENLIGHT.com/get started.